Released in May of 1986 on the Nintendo Famicom, Enix's Dragon Quest set the standard for the JRPG genre, adapting the style of more Western PC RPGs into a more simplistic, console-friendly experience. Japan was in a frenzy for the game, and with solid reception in the West, the game has racked up over 5 million copies sold worldwide. This launched a highly successful global franchise, with reports of over 88 million copies sold throughout the various entries of the series, several spin-off franchises, and being claimed as inspiration for creators of fan-favorite games like Pokemon, Final Fantasy, and Undertale. But until recently, I had never played a Dragon Quest game. Even with all of the popularity, prestige, and grandeur, the thought had never even crossed my mind. Why is that? The franchise that inspired Pokemon, my favorite game series ever, my first game, and the thing that made me fall in love with gaming in the first place, and I had little interest. To be honest, like Resident Evil in my last video, it intimidated me. Not because I was scared of the subject matter or that the Dragon Lord was gonna jump out from behind the corner and scare me, but because of the size, scope, and complexity that the series is known for. Do me a favor and pause this video, go to a different tab or whip out your phone and head to howlongtobeat.com. Search for Dragon Quest, any of them will do, and look at the times. At the time of recording, Dragon Quest XI is 89 hours long. Dragon Quest VIII is 79 hours. Dragon Quest VII is 93 and a half hours. This is what I was scared of. I was scared of how massive these games are. I'm normally a guy who likes a quick romp through a game. 10 to 15 hours and I'm on to the next. We don't gotta look at my Skyrim tattoo or my 400 hours of grinding for shinies in Pokemon Sword. And I was worried I was gonna get roped into one of these games, and then with how long you trudge through tutorial after tutorial, learning how everything works, partnered with how expensive some of these games can be on the used market, the sunk cost fallacy really sinks its teeth into you, and you either go through 60 hours of a game you don't even necessarily like, or you've wasted your time and money in a game you'll never finish. This is what scared me about the Dragon Quest series up until now. But this channel was designed to help me break out of my shell, try new things I normally wouldn't, and a ton of good has come out of that, so I decided to take the dive. I was ready to slowly climb down the ladder into the metaphorical pool of Dragon Quest. But instead of the icy depths of the high dive, I was going to slide into the jacuzzi next to the pool with Dragon Quest Builders. Dragon Quest Builders is an alternate universe sequel to the original 1986 Famicom game, where you're tasked to rebuild after the Dragon Lord plunges the world into darkness. While in most RPGs, the rebuilding is more metaphorical, in Dragon Quest Builders it is very literal, building each of the 4 towns you come across block by block. Taking heavy inspiration from games like Minecraft or Terraria, you are tasked with gathering materials to craft weapons, supplies, and blocks to rebuild rooms for the villagers you collect while going through each town's unique story. The twist in gameplay mechanics is what drew me to this title in particular. It was a fresh new world for me to explore with the building and crafting mechanics of Minecraft that I already know and love, or so I thought. With more of a top-down perspective and some shifts to the way blocks are placed, it is an entirely new experience with its own strengths, weaknesses, and it took us for a wild ride through the lands of Alefgard. Alefgard plays host to several different friends, foes, and landscapes that made this game feel truly unique. Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball fame has been doing the character designs for the Dragon Quest games since the beginning of the franchise, and this game has all the charm and style you would expect from his work. All of the characters are popping with personality. With all of the quests they send you on, the requests for what they have to build, and the ideas of how to move the towns forward, it really brings them to life. From Pippa, who can be overbearing and has a complete disregard of your personal space, to Ellie, the stoic and kind-hearted nun who only wants to help others through the sickness that plagues their town. They all have their own motives, and it makes the world feel lived in despite the darkness and relatively small population of NPCs. The enemies you encounter are also incredibly varied, from the iconic slimes to menacing death scorpions to the goofy Yeti-inspired Powie Wowie. It makes you feel like there's always something new coming to kill you and destroy your town. Speaking of the towns, they all have different personalities as well, and can be built however you see fit. We theme them in different ways, like a hotel, a mansion, and a castle, and for the most part are customizable however you'd like them. The only caveat is, I wish I would have had a bit more space to build, because there's so much I would have liked to add to my towns, but I simply ran out of space. This unfortunately wasn't the only problem I had with the game. The first of my laundry list of issues was the clunky controls. With the top-down perspective, building can be confusing and frustrating. Whether that was placing a block above or below where you'd like it, or placing a block where you wouldn't expect, because the block guide doesn't pop up until after you've placed a block. This is especially evident with the placement of fences. Unlike games like Minecraft, where the fence pieces lock into place automatically, the fences in Dragon Quest Builders don't connect at all, and are placed diagonally, so if you want to make them look decent at all, it takes several minutes of careful positioning to make sure that they are placed in a way that you would want them to be. This clunky nature wasted so much time and materials because I had to reposition myself to break whatever mistake I made, and then generally accidentally break at least a few blocks around them. The camera angle also made it near impossible to put roofs on any of your rooms. Not because it was difficult to build or that it looked weird, but the camera doesn't like to go inside of rooms once the roof is installed. There is a button to zoom the camera in while inside rooms, but it tends to zoom in way too close to be essentially a close-up of your character's hair without getting a decent look of what you need in the room. All of this fighting with the building and camera controls was accompanied by the soothing soundtrack that quickly became grating. All of the songs are remasters of songs from the original games, and this is a nice nostalgic throwback, but there's only like 9 or 10 unique songs, and they have the length and complexity of NES game songs that get extremely repetitive over time. The game also has some really strange difficulty spikes that often came out of nowhere. Most of them were boss fights, which can be understandable, but the difficulty spike was so drastic that it really took me off guard. The 3 main spikes that stuck out to me were the boss of the second town, the entire third town, and the final boss. These 3 spots seemed like they had come out of nowhere, and they were way harder than the other sections of the game around them. Not to mention, these powerful enemies would all come and invade your town, destroying all of the hard work you put into constructing these towns in the first place. And after rebuilding from the destruction of these insanely powerful fights, you'd have to leave the town to progress forward. All of the characters you met, the rooms you just built, and all of your items and equipment you gathered and created. It felt as if I was being forced to start fresh in all 4 of the towns I had to save, and most of the time it left me wholly unprepared. Having to scrounge for new materials and food. Yes, there is a hunger meter, so I didn't starve to death or get torn apart by monsters, was a slow, grindy experience, and one of the reasons I had avoided the genre as a whole in the past. This extended my playtime exponentially and led me to feel as though I was wasting time trying to survive rather than making meaningful progress in the fight towards the Dragon Lord. Speaking of the Dragon Lord, his fight was by far the worst part of the game. It was unnecessarily long, had a second difficulty spike mid-fight with Phase 2, and had an insta-death dialogue option where the die option was the default. This is all without any kind of checkpoint or autosave, so a single slip-up could send you back to the beginning of the fight, making the last 20 minutes of your life mean absolutely nothing. His second phase strips all of your items you spent hours gathering, leaving you to defend yourself with nothing but seemingly random NPC item drops. This whole process seemed unfair, drawn out, and unfun. And to end the game on this fight really left a sour taste in my mouth, and left me feeling let down with the ending. All in all, I thought the story and idea behind Dragon Quest Builders was a fun romp through the land of the Dragon Quest franchise, and a look at what might have happened if the first game had ended differently. but with how many issues and design choices I find particularly grating, I can't say I would necessarily recommend this game to someone. I've been told by people in my stream chats that the sequel fixed a lot of these problems, and maybe one day we'll even check it out and see for ourselves. So, what do you think of Dragon Quest Builders? Is there anything else you'd like to see me take a blind look at? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with everything going on the channel. You can also find me at Tilted1013 on whatever your preferred social media is. Thanks, and I hope to see you soon.